Hello, my name is Dubaniewcz, and I'm here to talk to you today about the importance of successfully integrating females into military combat units. I believe in order to successfully integrate females into military combat units, we must have one standard across the board for both men and women. I believe by upholding the current standards, if women are to be successfully integrated into combat units, is the only way that we can actually uphold the same standard and have combat effectiveness and readiness. My goal today is to inform you and help you understand the importance of maintaining that current standard and properly training women and the men so that they integrate together and create one standard across the board so that there's no animosity and that there's no lack in readiness for combat units. Now imagine that you're in combat and you get critically injured, and your fellow troop that shows up to help evacuate you or get you out of the line of fire is someone that cannot successfully evacuate you or pull you away because the amount of weight or gear that you're carrying or you're injured. Your life could be in jeopardy just because we integrate men and women together and use a different standard for women as we do for men. If we have a lower standard, then of course a female may not be as strong as their male counterpart, and in order to pull you out and make sure that you're safely evacuated from that area, it may be impossible for that female if she's held to a lower standard. My goal is that we are to successfully integrate women into combat units. We are to use the current standard. I would hope after my presentation, all of you have a better understanding of the importance of combat fitness for both men and women in the military. This being said, there are numerous military officials that agree with myself as that there needs to be the same standard upheld for both men and women as the current standard. The same standard making history. That's where the Marine Corps right now is. The United States Marine Corps is moving forward with integrating women into combat, and they're doing it using the same standard in their infantry training battalions and their school of infantry. There's no difference between a male and a female in a Marine's eyes. Everyone is a Marine, and if that standard cannot be met, then that individual Marine cannot move on and be part of a combat unit. I have a total of 16 years of military experience. I've been deployed to 4 different war zones, and I feel this gives me first-hand knowledge of why combat standard is so important. I served 6 years in the United States Marine Corps. 3 of those years was a rapid deployment anti-terrorism unit, so we had to be able to deploy anywhere in the world within 24 hours. One of those deployments was when the Khobar Towers blew up back in 1996, the Air Force barracks. I was on a plane and I was flying away within 12 hours. Another military unit that I'm in, I'm currently serving in. I've served 10 years in the United States Air National Guard. I'm currently serving still in the United States Air National Guard. My most recent deployment with the United States Air National Guard is Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan in 2008 and 2009. Between the Marine Corps and the Air Force, the Air National Guard, my Marine Corps units, I was in an infantry and anti-terrorism unit. I had no females in my units at all in the Marine Corps. They were very high-paced, expeditionary force and readiness units that were rapid deployment. And at that time, women were not allowed in those types of units. My career in the Air Force so far, I've served in security forces, which is like a military police unit, which is what I was in when I did deploy to Afghanistan, and I am currently in a vehicle operations unit right now, which we do convoys and transportation, which I'm sure anyone that's watched any bit of the news with the wars that are going on, or any videos, they see the IEDs, the improvised explosive devices, blowing up our convoys and our units. That's what I'm doing now. The reason why I bring all this up is I've deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, I've been in Haiti, I've been in Bosnia, I've been deployed to numerous places all over the world. And I believe this first-hand knowledge and the knowledge of having 2 separate units in the military, 2 separate military services, gives me a first-hand experience of why I want to convey to you the importance of keeping the same combat standard. The average Marine carries 97 to 135 pounds in combat loads. That being said, the average woman herself weighs 127 to 151 pounds. The average male is 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs an average of 131 to 171 pounds. The genetic makeup of a male naturally being bigger and stronger than the average woman gives them an advantage naturally to carry this amount of weight. This is an average combat load. Some of this gear you see in front of me, I have a helmet, I have a pack, I have your war gear, we call it, 782 gear. You also have a rifle, ammunition. If you're carrying a grenade launch, you have grenades. All this extra weight that you have to carry in and out of combat day to day takes a definite stressful toll on your body. Male and females are genetically different. Everyone knows that. Everyone understands that. Therefore, I feel you're naturally going to have less women that are able to meet the current standards. That's fine. I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think we should set a lower standard just so that we can say, oh, we have an equal number of males and females in these combat units. There are a lot of genetic makeups that make a big difference between males and females. One that really strikes me, and it stands out very well from my last deployment. My last deployment in Afghanistan, our air base was at 5,500 feet above sea level. That was the lowest point in that country in which we operated. Everything from there on out went up. The average mountains around us were 18,000 feet. Everyone knows that as you climb a mountain, the air gets thinner, your lung capacity comes into a very big role in your combat fighting and effectiveness. It's estimated that approximately a female has approximately 20 to 25% less lung capacity than their male counterparts. This is due to the variations in body size and muscle content. Differences in the intakes of oxygen and translate into aspects of performance. When a man is jogging at about, say, 50% at his capacity, a woman will need to work at 70% in order for her to keep up with that male counterpart. This is very important because when you're in combat and you get into a firefight and you're engaged with the enemy, it's not just an hour and it's over with. There's been times where there's been engagements for days. And I feel when you're fighting at, say, 15,000 feet, the air is thin, you got 95, 100 pounds of gear on you, your lung capacity comes into a definite part of your ability to engage the enemy effectively. The reason I bring this up is because females are already going into the fight with a less lung capacity, the average female. I'm not saying that there aren't females that are going to by far exceed the male counterparts. I absolutely believe that 100%, and I think it's great. But we're setting a standard for an average across the board requirement, and I don't believe we should be lowering that standard right now and splitting a dual standard for both men and women. My points for these is the fact that women are genetically different than men. It's obvious. And there are some negative factors, if you will, as to why there will be less women in combat-related units as there are to men. Trust is very important in combat units. If women are to be infantry leaders, they must be able to train and discipline their units. One of the things in the United States Marine Corps, if your unit is not performing to a certain standard, or you have individuals within your unit, whether it be a squad or a platoon or even a company-sized unit, if they're not performing well, if they're making mistakes, one of the things you have, a tool you have as a leader, say a squad leader, is called non-judicial punishment. Non-judicial punishment is when a squad leader has a couple of underperforming Marines and they wish to not write them up or give them paperwork or ruin their career, but they wish to to motivate them to perform at the level of which their counterparts are. This is basically physical fitness. They are going to take you out. They are going to physically, and I hate to use the word punish, but they are going to train you remedial physical training. They are going to use that tool to make you want to adhere to a standard and make you want to perform at 100%. Now, if women are integrated into these units at a lower standard than their male counterparts, and a woman is put in as a squad leader, if that woman squad leader has a lower standard, which is lower than all the other, say, 13 Marines that she has in our squad, how can she effectively lead from the front and train her Marines to a standard in which they have to hold? They have a higher standard than her. She's not going to be able to enforce that standard. She isn't going to be able to take them out and run them and physically train them to the standard in which they need to meet, because it's a higher standard in which she has to be held to herself and which she actually is performing. That's where a lot of the trust comes in too. If you have individual Marines, sailors, airmen underneath an individual, say a female, even a male that performs at a lower rate than they do, how can they trust their leader? How can they know that their leader is going to be out there in front, leading the way, that they're going to be there for them, that they're going to make sure that their unit is as combat effective as possible? The reason why I bring up these points is because there's a major difference between male and females. And we have to understand that if we are to successfully integrate females into combat units, we have to come to the realization that there are going to be lower number of females than there are males in these units. If we keep the same standards, the genetic makeup of females, we're just going to have lower numbers. You also have to understand those numbers might be lower just for the fact that there probably aren't going to be as many women that wish to join these units as there are men. Yes, the point can be brought up by others that there are males in their units that cannot meet these standards. Currently, right now, if a male in a combat unit cannot meet the combat fitness standard, they are offered remedial training. Remedial training will consist of physical fitness. They can get, say, 6 months. Their squad leader, which has to be at a higher standard than they are, can take them out, physically train them, and try to get them to pass the combat fitness test. If that combat fitness test is not passed, that Marine, even though he's a male, is going to be either discharged out of the military service that he's serving in, or is going to be put into a non-combat unit. This is a standard that's going to have to be held across the board for both men and women. We have to uphold the same standard in order to build trust and leadership within our combat units. There are many emotional and psychological challenges, too, that people face in combat. Now that we learn about the physical differences between male and females and how they can negatively affect combat effectiveness if women are successfully integrated into combat units but at a lower standard, I'd like to move on to discussing some of the emotional and physical challenges that women differ from men. Females are different psychologically, and they face psychological challenge at a much higher rate than their male counterparts do in the military. One area we can look at is PTSD amongst women, post-traumatic stress disorder. Women who enter the military service start at a disadvantage when it comes to experiencing PTSD compared to their male counterparts. Women are nearly twice as likely to suffer PTSD even as a civilian. The study was done. And when you enter them into combat, it's going to be at even a higher rate. As a civilian, a woman is twice as likely to suffer PTSD. Another factor or consideration is, are we ready to see women, as a nation, are we ready to see women in combat-related units, pictures of them, video footage of them dying? Yes, I know women serve overseas, I know women serve in war right now, but generally they are non-combat related units. Yes, have we had casualties of women in these units already that they're over-serving? Yes, we have. But a combat-related unit, a firefight, the Marines that cleared Fallujah, Army units that are in forward operating bases in Afghanistan, are we ready as a nation, as a political nation to see our women over there fighting. We need to consider another factor too with psychological changes, is that in days before a woman's cycle, she loses half of her strength. Emotional ups and downs and judgments could also be a consideration during a woman's cycle. There are also considerations of sanitary needs in forward operating bases. Forward operating bases are deep within enemy territory, whether it be within Afghanistan or Iraq. And there are times where there's no supplies or resupplies that make it to those bases within weeks. And the limited amount of flights in and out and the limited amount of supplies, men are already running at a very low level. They don't have the tools they need in order to hygienically be clean and properly taken care of. I feel that this is another consideration that we need to address before we just implement females into combat units. This needs to be addressed before we take our women, train them, send them over there, and they go, oh no, we weren't ready because we don't have the amount of hygiene products that they need to come in and out. It's hampering our supply lines in and out. You know, if a convoy is bringing you your supplies, they're getting blown up. Males are doing without a lot already, and I believe that it's easier as a male in the male anatomy to deal without the proper hygiene as it is a female. It's just another consideration that we need to have. I'm not saying it's something that disqualifies women and that's it. That's not it. I want to see women in these combat units, but I want to see all the thought process and everything that we need to do ahead of time to successfully integrate them. I don't want a political push and just go, all right, we got women in combat units, and then that's it. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a successful integration, a seamless integration, and something that does not affect combat readiness. Like I said, can we put our politics aside? Politics play a major role in combat operations, whether it's going to war, invading another country. Any decision we make is a political decision in this country. I feel that the military should not be a big political ploy, but it is. Are there going to be people, senators, governors, presidents, that push women joining combat units for votes? Absolutely, I believe there are. I believe that they're going to use the equal opportunity and the equal rights movement to try to gain votes and push women into these combat roles. I think equal opportunity, equal rights is exactly the right thing we should be doing in our country, but I just don't want to see it done in a hasty movement and hasty push just to get a political point across or to get votes. We owe it to these women that are going to go fight for our country to be successfully integrated into these units. If we don't do that, we are failing them. We are failing our women that are serving our nation's military if we don't study and truly make sure we implement everything ahead of time that we need to do to make sure they're integrated into these units. Now that we have raised the question about possible political ramifications and in combat roles, I'd like to discuss women in combat units and how they may affect military law and possible political issues that we face. By allowing women into combat roles without the same standard as males, are we setting ourselves up to face legal action? And what I mean by that is, we integrate women, say, at a really low standard or a lower standard than their male counterparts, and they become a squad leader or platoon leader. They are now making decisions for all those men and women underneath them. Those men and women underneath of them that are at a higher standard, is it fair to them that they have a leader that cannot adhere to the same standard as them? Is their promotion, that their pay that they're trying to get, they're both trying to vie for the same position? Is it fair that a male that may be more qualified, that runs a higher combat fitness test, has a higher physical fitness score, is actually not given the job over a woman that has a lower fitness score? Is there going to be political action and legal recourse down the road? We don't know. Why is it we would hold a male to a higher standard? We would fail the woman by not holding her to the same standard. We would be setting her up for failure. We would be setting her up for animosity within the units, possible legal action? What if it comes out that we have a lower standard and the death rate's going up and we have legal action because there is a troop that gets killed and their family finds out that the only person around was a female held to a lower standard and they could not save that individual over there? Is that something we're ready to set up for legal action down the road? I don't even think we want to go there. I think our military women want to be a part of these units effectively. We want them to be a part of the units, but we want them to be the best that they can possibly be. That's what the U.S. military is about, pushing yourself to be your best. If we don't push the women and men to have the same standard, we are letting the women down by having a lower standard. Women will do great things in combat units. Even if our leadership integrates them properly with the same standards. By allowing women into combat roles without the same standards, you're setting them up for failure. If your son or daughter or loved one is wounded in battle and you had a chance to be rescued, to save their life, but you found out their life was lost because of a lower standard, is that something that you can live with? Is it something we as a nation can live with? We are at war in Afghanistan. We're currently at war in Afghanistan. We are still at war in Iraq. We have up to almost 3,000 troops in Iraq, and they're talking about sending more troops to Iraq every day. That's not counting the stuff that's going on with Russia and all the other places across the continents in the world. We need to be ready. We have to be at the highest standard we can in order to effectively protect our nation. If women are integrated successfully using the same standards as men, there will be a greater chance for success. Unit cohesion will be high, and operational readiness will be positively affected. And what I mean by this is that if we integrate women, and we do it successfully, and we have the same standard, women are going to bring so much to these combat units. They have a different point of view. I am currently in a unit, and I have 3 women in my unit. They look at things differently than most of us males do. Some have great ideas. We incorporate those ideas. We integrate them. It's a great unit cohesion. It's a great unit mix. I want women in combat units, but I don't want them to fail. I don't want us as a society to fail the women joining these units just because we want to get numbers in there and we want to say it's for equal opportunity. After all, equal opportunity, the word equal, the same standard. We want to make history with the same standard. We discussed many numerous issues facing integrating women into combat units. I believe that women can be a great asset to our military fighting force if we take the time to integrate them properly. Today I discussed numerous issues that need to be addressed if we hope to successfully integrate women into combat roles. I believe that women can be a huge asset in our combat roles if we take the time and the proper solutions to come up, and all these issues need to be addressed ahead of time before integration. I also strongly believe that we must maintain one equal standard for both men and women, and we should not lower any current standards for combat units. I'd like to leave you with this last thought, and I've said it before. If your son, daughter, or loved one were wounded in battle and had a chance to be rescued or saved, would you be able to live with the fact that they may have lost their life just because of a lower standard? Because of a bunch of numbers that some politician or someone in the military came up with to say, we're going to allow this standard to be lowered so that we can have a certain number to say we're allowing women into combat roles. Are you willing, as a nation and a military fighting force, to lower combat effectiveness just to have a higher number of women in combat units? I'm not ready to lower the standards. I don't believe it's something that we should be doing. I believe that women should be integrated successfully with the proper standards, and I believe we should look at all the issues before we integrate women into these combat units. I look forward to the day where all women are integrated into combat units and they're open to every single role in the military. I don't think we're that far away. I just hope it's done properly and that we do it with the same standard. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I hope I left you with some answers as well as some other questions to further explore. I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, dube0311@yahoo.com. Thank you, and again, my name is Dubaniewcz.